I have analyzed over 1,000 Airbnb listings across Australia, and what I've found completely changed the way that I think about what makes an Airbnb business profitable. You see, most people assume the difference between a listing that actually stays booked and one that sits empty is just luck. But after going through listing after listing, the data makes one thing very clear. Luck has nothing to do with it. They just show up with certain things working in their favor. Whereas the ones that bleed cash all share the same blind spots that most hosts don't even realize they have. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 7 specific things that show up in every single high-performing Airbnb listing, and these aren't just random theories either. These are real patterns discovered by someone who generates over $350,000 a month while managing over 45 Airbnb properties myself. So if you're serious about building a profitable short-term rental business, grab a pen and paper because some of these things are going to completely change how you look at listings moving forward. Starting with one thing that every guest sees before anything else: your photos. See, most hosts treat photos like a checkbox. Take a few pictures on your phone, you upload them, and then you're done. But the highest performing Airbnb listings treat their photos like a sales page because that's exactly what they are. And your first photo is the single most important one. It's the one thing standing between a scroll and a click. Think about it, when a guest is scrolling through dozens of listings, your first photo has maybe 2 seconds to stop them in their tracks. So top listings lead with a hero shot, a wide angle with natural light capturing the most visually stunning part of the property, front and center. This shot basically needs to force someone to stop and think, I must stay here. Here are some examples from my portfolio. This is one of my properties, which is a 3-bedroom in South Bank, Melbourne. Now the property itself is already very nice, but we took advantage of the panoramic views of the city and the floor to ceiling windows to capture a dust photography shoot to make sure it pops in photos. And we actually paid a premium to capture this dust photography shoot. Now generally most operators would opt in for a daytime photography shoot rather than a dust photography shoot because generally it's much cheaper, but we knew that paying a premium on the photography would yield us a much higher return than cheaping out on the hero shot. So for an extra $200 on photography, which is a one-time cost, we were able to generate 2 to 3 times more than the average 3-bedroom in this area every single month. Now of course the photography wasn't the only thing that made this listing perform, but it was definitely a big factor as to why guests stop and even click in the first place. And in the last 6 months, this property in our portfolio was our highest performer, making $39,000 in net profit. $39,000 in net profit in 6 months. That's someone's full-time salary. From there, the best listings don't just show you the photos, they guide you through the space. In other words, they take the guests on a journey through the living space, the bedrooms, the kitchen, the outdoor area, the gym, the pool, in a way that mirrors how someone would actually move through the property. It feels like a walkthrough, and that feeling builds trust before the guest has even read a single word of your description. Now, the property behind me is just an average 2-bedroom apartment. It's nothing special, and honestly, it's kind of small, but the photos itself makes it feel inviting and spacious. Here we have a close-up of a coffee setup, and if you scroll through, you can see the rooftop pool of the building and a gym as well. It's important that in your photos, you highlight the most captivating and most important parts of your property to give the guests a reason to book with you rather than some other listing. You see, the photo tour sells an experience to a guest that they won't otherwise get with another property that is less intentional with their photography. And if you think no one is out here uploading dark, cluttered, low-effort photos, you would actually be very, very surprised. It's actually one of the most common reasons listings quietly underperform without the host ever understanding why. And the data backs it up. Airbnb's own data shows listings with professional photography are earning up to 40% more revenue and getting booked 24% more often than listings with amateur iPhone photos. That one investment pays for itself within the very first booking. But at the end of the day, even the best photos won't carry you if what comes next doesn't do its job properly. Because this next piece is what truly convinces someone to book their next stay. Now, let's talk about your title and your description. You see, most hosts write some description like 2-bedroom apartment close to the city with Wi-Fi. That's not a description, that's a checklist. And the problem is, checklists don't sell. But the listings that never seem to struggle for bookings approach this like they're selling you a stay. You almost feel dumb for not booking. You see, they're not just listing features, they're turning those features into something the guest can actually picture. So instead of close to the city, it becomes 5 minutes from the CBD, plus walking distance to of Melbourne's best restaurants and nightlife. Same fact, but now it actually means something to the person reading it. And your title plays the same game. It's not just there to label the property, it's there to hook attention. The ones that actually convert lead with the strongest angle immediately. Whether it's a location, a unique feature, or the overall vibe, or specific amenities that might be competitive. Because the goal isn't just clarity, it's curiosity. Now, if you're a host, you should know about your conversion funnel metric. You see, if you go to the top right corner of Airbnb, go to the opportunities tab and then press conversion, you will notice 4 numbers there that show you how your funnel is performing. And the most important number here is your overall conversion rate. One of the easiest ways to boost your conversion rate is to make sure more people are clicking into your listing. And one of the easiest ways to make sure more people are clicking into your listing is to spark curiosity through your photos and your title. Because these are the things that actually get displayed on Airbnb search results. So having a proper title that hits the most important keywords is very, very key to making sure your listing stays competitive in Airbnb's search algorithm. But here's the thing, getting someone to click and actually getting someone to book are 2 completely different decisions. And pricing is the next piece that usually decides which way that they will go. You see, the biggest mistake most hosts make is setting a price and leaving it there. This is known as static pricing, which seems harmless, but it's actually one of the fastest ways to either price yourself out of bookings entirely or leave serious money sitting on the table every single month. Because the hosts that are actually generating real income treat pricing like a living, breathing part of their business. Their rates move based on demand, seasonality, local events, and what competitors are doing. So when demand spikes, prices go up, and when things slow down, they adjust to keep the calendar full. The goal should never be to be the cheapest option in the market. It should always be, how can you become the smartest one? And here's where things get interesting. Once you build a strong review base, your listing gains leverage. So during high demand periods, a property with a great reputation behind it can sit 30 to 50% above the market rate and still get booked without hesitation. Because at that point, guests aren't just booking a property, they're buying certainty. You remember that listing that I showed you before? The one with the nice views and the nice photography? Well, during the F1 Grand Prix race in Melbourne, which is the biggest weekend for short-term rentals in the city, that property got booked out at $2,000 a night. Here's the proof of the booking. Now, the reason why we were able to land this booking wasn't just because of the nice photos or the title or even the description. It was our ability to surge our prices up and capture the spike in demand where it was necessary. If we had set our entire calendar at something like $300 or $400 a night, we wouldn't have even the chance to get bookings at the full potential of the listing, which on that weekend happened to be $2,000 a night, which is about 13 times what we pay in rent for that property. And the gap between a host that understands these things and the one who doesn't shows up directly in their numbers. They could have the same property type in the same suburb, yet one breaks even every single month, while the other is generating real consistent income by adding more properties. The only difference is how they approach their pricing. But everything that we've talked about so far assumes one thing, that the property itself was even the right call. And more often than not, this is the next factor that becomes a huge problem for most people. Because listings don't fail because the host is bad. They fail because the wrong property ended up in the wrong market. And across all 1,000 listings that I went through, this pattern showed up very consistently. Every single market has a specific type of traveler it attracts. For example, CBD areas brings in business travelers, couples, solo guests, and groups on short stays. So compact 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments dominate. Whereas coastal and regional areas pull in families and larger groups looking for a full experience over several nights. So larger homes with outdoor spaces and unique features are actually what get booked. Simply put, when you put the wrong property inside the wrong market, nothing you do will fix it. But even after you've got the right property in the right market, the next thing that you need to understand is how to position the location. You see, there's a difference between saying close to the beach and saying a 4-minute walk to St. Kilda Beach with the best cafes right outside your door. One is a vague fact and the other puts the guest there before they've even booked. But there's one more thing that makes properties stay consistently booked year round. You see, it isn't always about being in the most obvious locations. Most of the time, the most profitable ones are near things that drive reliable demand no matter what season it is. Places like event venues, beaches, convention centers, or stadiums. For example, this property right here is right next to Marvel Stadium in Melbourne. And the reason why it's able to stay so competitive is because there's events no matter what season it is. Tonight, there's actually an AFL game going on outside. So when I got here, there was like a line of cars waiting to get into the car park. And by the way, we're in the middle of May, which is slow season. That is how in demand this property is. And we have 18 other units in the exact same building. So no matter what time of the year it is, all these units are always booked, especially on weekends, because events at Marvel Stadium happen all year round. So before you sign anything, get honest about 4 things. Who is actually traveling to the area? why are they coming, how long they typically stay, and what kind of space they actually need. Answer those honestly and both the right property and the right positioning become obvious. Now, once you have the right property and the right positioning locked in, the next insight is the one that genuinely surprises most people because it completely flips the way you think about how much money your listing is actually making. Most hosts believe that a fully booked calendar should be the goal. And on the surface, that makes sense. But here's the thing, if your listing is sitting at 95 to 100% occupancy rate consistently, that's not actually a win. That's a signal that you're probably underpriced. Think about it this way, Airbnb itself is a supply and demand market. So when demand for your listing is running way ahead of what you're charging, your price should go up along with it. But if guests are snatching up the dates the moment they become available, you have room to charge more. A well-priced listing should be sitting somewhere around 75 to 85% occupancy, booked enough to create strong income, but with enough breathing room that makes the price make sense. And this flips the entire way most hosts evaluate the listing's performance. Because the question is no longer, am I getting bookings? It's, am I getting the right bookings at the right price? Because a calendar that is 75% booked at a premium rate will almost always outperform a calendar that is 100% full at a rate that's too low. And once you actually get this, you stop chasing a full calendar and start chasing the right numbers. Because busy and profitable are not the same thing. And the hosts who figured it out early are the ones who end up building something real. But beyond everything that we've covered so far, even the smartest pricing strategy in the world won't hold up if your operations behind it are falling apart. The hosts that are making serious money at scale aren't just running one great listing. They've built something that keeps working even when they're not. And that's the thing that most people don't think about when they're just starting out. At one property, it might be manageable, but at 3, 4, 5, everything will become an operational headache and you will burn out very fast. So the ones that actually scale do it by taking the stuff that eats up their day and making it run on its own. For example, every single guest message from booking confirmation to checkout should be automated. The check-in should be handled by a smart key collection process so that nobody has to be physically there. And the cleaning is scheduled automatically the moment a guest checks out. And here's the thing that catches most people off guard. When you run things this way, the guest experience actually gets better. Messages go out faster than any host could manually send them. Instructions are clearer. The stay feels consistent every single time, which in the end means the reviews get better, and that results in more bookings coming in. The hosts that never quite get that right are the ones doing all of this by hand, replying to messages at midnight, calling cleaners after every single checkout, checking competitor prices and adjusting manually. The fact is, this may work for a while, but at some point the whole thing becomes a second job they never signed up for, and the listing itself will start to reflect that. But systems itself can only take you so far if you're not constantly sharpening them. The top hosts don't just execute the basics better than everyone else. They also think about their properties differently. They look at the same opportunities that everyone else has and ask, is there a better way to do this? But here's where it gets interesting. The hosts pulling in serious numbers aren't just sitting back once a listing goes live. They're treating every single property like a business that can always be improved, because that's exactly what it is. And the way that they do that is by getting so obsessed with the numbers behind the listing, not just the listing itself. See, every Airbnb business has a funnel. Impressions turn into clicks, clicks turns into bookings, bookings turn into reviews, and reviews will turn into even more bookings at even higher nightly rates. The hosts who actually scale are the ones who know exactly where their funnel is leaking and fix it before it costs them another month of revenue. So if your impressions are low, that's a search ranking and SEO problem. If your impressions are high but your clicks are low, that's a hero photo or title problem. If your clicks are high but your conversion is low, that's a pricing, description or review problem. Every single metric points to a specific bottleneck, and once you can read those numbers properly, you stop guessing and start fixing the exact thing holding your property back. And this is the mindset shift that most hosts will never make. They launch a listing and if it's doing okay, they leave it alone. But the ones building real businesses are auditing their numbers every single week. They're finding the weakest link in the chain and they're improving it. Because a 5% lift on conversion, a 10% lift on average daily rate, and a small bump in occupancy compounds into a completely different business by the end of the year. So the goal itself isn't perfection on day one. The goal is to get 1% better every single week, because the hosts who improve their listing 52 times a year will run circles around the ones who set it up once and hope for the best. Now look, if you've made it this far, you now have a clearer picture of what actually makes a high-performing listing. But knowing it and building it are two completely different things entirely. And that's why 99% of people get stuck. Not because the model doesn't work, but because they try to figure it all out on their own with no real roadmap. And that is the exact problem that B&B Success Mentorship was built to solve. We have proudly helped over 1,000 Australians build and scale their own Airbnb portfolio, with most people getting their first first property live in under 30 days. If you want that same support, the link to book a call with our team is in the description below. Then we'll sit with you and figure out exactly where you're starting from and map out exactly what your first move looks like. But if you're not there yet and you still want to understand how this business model works from the very beginning, click the video right here. That's where I break the entire process down.